Booyah, and it's time for the Game Sports Show, the Twin Sault's only local, regional, and national sports show. It's your host, David McKeag, joined by my co-host and host of the Game Sports Show in the United States of America, Scott Nason. Scotty, how you doing, sir?
Dave, honored to be on your show for the first time. You're doing great things over here, and thanks for having me tonight.
Absolutely. Just to give the listeners a quick background of you and myself, we've been together on the show since 2015, started in the US of A, expanded to Canada since 2015. We've been on radio, we've been recording through cell phones, we've recorded at McDonald's, we've recorded at SportsCenter, at all these different places now. We're on ESPN and television. It's been a great ride, my friend.
Yeah, we're a media conglomerate right now with all the shows we got going on here with Soo Online, ONN TV, also our first radio show last night on ESPN 1400, which you were a part of. So it's exciting times, and there's always lots to talk about in the world of sports. If not, we find it and we do it.
We do it. ESPN, a partner of the Game Sports Show, and obviously Soo Online and ONN TV, and we're inside the ONN TV Soo Online studios, obviously. So, Scotty, we got some great content to get to, as always. It's just you and myself tonight, and we're going to go back and forth here about the expenses of hockey. Is hockey too expensive? And we got a great agenda today. Then we got John coming in part 2, and we got some football in part 3 and some other news and sports. But getting into hockey is too expensive would be our first part. Now, locally, we've talked about this numerous times on the radio. However, we're going to bring it to television right now so you actually see our facial reactions too when it comes to sports. Myself and yourself being a part of the game in sports for years and years. Is hockey too expensive, Scotty? We'll stick to hockey right now before we expand everything else.
I think you have to say yes at this point, just because of all the different, expenses that go into it. You're talking league registration fees. You're talking ice time, which in itself is a lot. But then you start adding up all the equipment, all the travel, especially if you have a son or daughter that play on a travel team. I mean, you're talking about buying several pairs of skates. You're talking skate sharpening. You're talking equipment. I mean, you add all that up. I mean, it's a lot of money to play hockey locally on both sides of the border. And so, to answer your question, is hockey too expensive? I'd have to say, just looking at that perspective, yes.
See, now, when the Pee Wee days for myself, hockey was very affordable and the enrollment was high. There was a waiting list with SRHA and Billy O. I know a lot of people might not remember what Billy O is, but that was the thing with SRHA. Before you got into the Pee Wee, there was a waiting list to get into the Soo Pee Wee Hockey League. And now they don't even have enough teams sometimes to run. They got 2 different leagues going. Hockey popularity in Soo, Ontario has definitely went down. I know we used to call this little hockey town Ontario. I'd have to disagree that is the case now, just because of all the talent that is surpassing us. Look at the AAA level, etc. And that's no offense to AAA teams right now. It's just all these other teams that have went further than the Thunderbirds, the AAA level, or the Greyhounds they are now called. But you have hockey right now that it's the fees you mentioned to it are way too expensive. Junior hockey teams, it is a big fee just to be on a junior team now. It used to be free, now it costs more, and you have the exposure, it pays for the bus, etc. I know it's a business cost, but at the end of the day, you're still paying a lot of money to play hockey, and I think that's why hockey enrollment went down.
I think that's one of the reasons, Dave, that hockey enrollment has gone down both on the U.S. and the Canadian side. I know our high school hockey used to be free, and now it's very expensive for many parents. I think there's other things at play here. I think also that less and less, kids are playing sports in general. I think that's gone down across across the board. I think that there's more sport-specific athletes that just play one sport. You don't have a lot of the baseball, football, hockey, combination. You have a lot more individuals, doing one sport only and trying to focus on that. So I think with the cost of the equipment and with several of those things, you're seeing it on both sides of the border. Just less and less people are playing hockey.
Absolutely. Now, just sports as a whole is expensive, but what I'm finding in Soo, Ontario is the soccer enrollment's real high because it's affordable at Strathclyde here in Soo, Ontario. But overall, sports is very expensive to be a part of, and it's a passion. It's also a very socialized event for your kids to be able to grow up in, and all my closest friends, everyone that I played hockey with, and my connections, even to you, Paul Van Wagner, happened because of hockey. Right. So now people think of hockey as an investment or sports as a whole. But enrollments are going up in other sports, yes, because of sports team like the Blue Jays, or in soccer with the TFC here in Canada especially. And that's why the popularity, that's why the sports are growing, but it's also more affordable to run.
Yeah, and I think there's more options, at least on the U.S. side, which I can speak a little bit more of. There's lacrosse. There wasn't lacrosse even 10 years ago. You're seeing more and more individuals play soccer. You're seeing more that do swimming because of affordability. You have more that play basketball because, you know, it's not as expensive. You're buying a pair of shoes and maybe a team registration fee, but, you know, with hockey, I mean, there's so many pieces of equipment that are there. Yeah. Over in the Sioux Michigan Hockey Association, they do have a program where they loan out equipment to, you know, parents, which helps with some of the costs. But again, you know, some people spend, you know, up to $1,000 a month just on their kids playing sports in the United States, and it's about 20% of the people, you know, according to a latest study. And so it's expensive. And, you know, how do you try to negate that? It's really tough. It's easier said than done.
Definitely. Leave your comments below on what you think if hockey is too expensive. But Scotty, and sports overall, I'd like to hear your take on that. But Scotty, we got a couple more minutes before we go to our first break, before we bring John in, head coach of the Sioux Thunderbirds. Body checking in hockey, and I think this would be perfect to just do a couple minutes on because it'll transition to some of our radio shows this week. Body checking in hockey, it's now later. It's in the Pee Wee major levels now, and sometimes it might even take it out because they might even take out fighting, etc. But body check in hockey, I'm a fan that has to be taught young. You have to learn how to hit. You got to learn how to properly hit. Are you a fan of the heading being taken out of hockey or being now later opposed to being younger?
I don't think you can take it totally out of hockey at any level. It's kind of like with soccer, them trying to get rid of the headers. I mean, it's something that's part of the game that's going to be there. I know when I played hockey, I was scared to death of when it came to the checking league, and it promptly exited a couple years later, I might add. But, you know, it's something that needs to be taught because it's part of the game. Unless you take it totally out of the game, you have to teach it because it's, you know, if you're going to progress to the next level, it's something that has to be done. So I would definitely say that, you know, I think it needs to be taught at a lower level, maybe not, you know, 7, 8-year-olds, but, you know, you got to start putting it in the game because it's going to be part of the game as you advance on.
Yeah, you can't take that out of hockey. You take that out of hockey, you're taking the fan involvement out of there, you're taking out that extra excitement, that big body check on the boards, even that odd fight, which not everyone is a fan of, the showboating fight, but I think all that is a part of the game, and it should not be taken out of the game, especially. You got to learn how to do it at a young age. That's why concussions are probably happening more, and players are faster now than what they used to be. So I'm saying all the light gear and etc. It's not as protected. You got to learn how to properly do physical contact. It's Dave McKeag alongside Scott Nason inside the Sioux Online ONN TV studios. You're listening to the Game Sports Show, the Twin Sioux's only local, regional, and national sports show. This has been part 1 of the game. We're going to get into part 2. We've got John Parko, head coach of the Sioux Thunderbirds, coming on right after these messages. Welcome back to the Game Sports Show. It's David McKeag, joined again by Scott Nason and our special guest, John Parko, head coach of the Sioux Thunderbirds, going into his 3rd year as head coach of the Thunderbirds. Johnny, thanks for taking the time to come on by to join Scotty and I.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
3rd year coaching the Thunderbirds, and obviously you guys announced a couple signings that you can follow the Thunderbirds on Facebook at Sioux Thunderbirds. Nolan Ford, Nick Smith, and Colin Ahern are re-signing with the Birds. Can you give us some news and some reaction about that?
No, we're very excited to have Nick, Nolan, and Colin, all 3 of them back. They're all 3 are talented hockey players, first of all, and all 3 of them are really good people. We're good kids. So good for the locker room, good for everything about the Sioux Thunderbirds. So
definitely good to get some veterans back. You guys had a unfortunate loss in the finals last year, and obviously this year is going to be a little bit of a redemption mode, you have to say, right?
Well, yeah, it's never easy, but we'd like to. We want to be one of the better teams, obviously. You know, and with if everything goes well, hopefully we can challenge for a championship.
Coach, being about a month away from the opening of the season, do you guys have a date set for your training camp, your main training camp going on? And give us some details on that.
Yep, we start the 24th of August at the John Rhodes Arena. We'll start with you know, just a weekend event where we're going to have maybe a few extra players come in, but mostly it'll be the players that we've already selected. I feel like with the season so close, we just wanted to get right into with our team and get training again. So I'm excited, and it's coming quick.
It is.
It is. Now, the schedule was released, as was also showed on your Facebook page and the website of the Sioux Thunderbirds. The season starts September 7th, 7 o'clock against the Sioux Eagles. Now, I know Scott is quite familiar with the Sioux Eagles doing the broadcast over there with our partners through ESPN 1400, and Sauver Communication. So the Eagles and Thunderbirds, talk about that rivalry and what a great way to start the season.
Well, it's definitely exciting every time you go into the Polar Arena, that's for sure.
Yes.
It's a great arena to play in.
Yeah.
It's actually, I think, probably the best rivalry in the NOJHL for sure.
We talked about that
I would
yesterday.
imagine.
We did.
Yeah, it's just it's exciting, and it's going to be a tough, hard-fought game, and there's going to be some tempers flaring, and it's exciting for the fans, I guess.
The names change, Coach, but the rivalry doesn't. It being a part of this Thunderbirds-Eagles rivalry, over 10 years now, these teams have been playing each other. And, do you as a coach and your players just get maybe a little more up for playing the Eagles? It seems like it doesn't matter if it's exhibition season, if it's regular season, playoff, that intensity is always there, isn't it?
It's 100% there. It is exciting. It's one of those things that you say to yourself, you're going to go there and you're going to be a little bit calm, and then the fighting attitude comes out, and the battle,
That's for sure.
the battle, and then it's a hard fought game every time, and you want to win, so you do whatever it takes.
Oh, yeah.
And these are the cliche questions, but I gotta ask it because it is you gotta go cliche. The expectations for this year, obviously losing last year, unfortunately, in the finals. Year before that, I believe, was in the semifinals.
Right.
So obviously, I think this year would want to be to take the step, right, to be the champions this year. So I think that's an easy prediction for you to say, or for expectations for yourself. But besides winning a championship, even winning the league, expectations for the team overall and the kind of team that you're building, like the philosophy of the team going into the year.
Well, it's really hard to say. I mean, we obviously we lost a couple of key players. It's really hard to replace Lucas Terrio and Noah Bowman, obviously. I think if we can find a couple players that can step up and score a few more goals for us, and we do find a couple extra players that come in and play some roles that Spence Van Tiem and Brendan Miller played, for example.
Yeah.
I think we can be competitive. I think our dressing room is our nucleus is still there.
Yeah.
So we still have a lot of returning players that are going to help out, and you gotta have a little bit of luck if you can stay healthy. I mean, I still don't know how we got through that playoffs this year with all the injuries we had.
Yep.
But we did it, and we made it, and we were one game short. So you never really know in
battle
hockey.
back in that series,
and we
too.
did battle back, yes. So.
Coach, the league as a whole, where it's at right now, you've been a part of this league now for a few years. Dave, of course, played many years ago, a few years ago, and I've been around the league for a while. The league itself, as a whole, I think, has improved from top to bottom. We're seeing more players progress to the next level. Where do you see the league going into the 2019?
Well, actually, what? I was actually very impressed with the improvement last season.
Yeah.
From 2 years ago. The 2 years ago I thought was a really tough league to play in, physically and even mentally, because of all the running around and the rough stuff and the dirty stuff. For a young kid, it would have been really tough to play in. Instead, last year I think the league started to put their foot down with some of the dirtier penalties, and they took a strong line and with some strong suspensions, and hopefully that continues. And I think the whole world is moving to a more cleaner hockey game, and people want to see speed and exciting play, not as much as the dirty stuff. There's still a lot of room for tough, strong play, but just not dirty checks.
Yeah.
So
definitely, we've talked about that numerous times on the broadcast, that the game has changed and evolved so much, not just in the past 2 years, let alone last 5, 10. It changes year by year. And I find, from a coach's perspective, as long as you have a team full of guys that are speed, hardworking, that's where you have success. And obviously, between the pipes is so imperative now. Right. But as a coach, what do you see that as a kind of the well-built team in today's hockey, especially in the NOJHL?
Well, everybody talks about speed and size and skill. Obviously it's just, the way the game is played today. If you watch the games in the NHL, it's nonstop. It's 60 minutes of back and forth. There's no more, shutting down the neutral zone. We're going one end to another, and it's full speed. Yep. And that's the way we like to play. We like to activate our D a lot. We like to, it's north-south as fast as you can.
Yep.
So you need players that can skate.
And that's the big thing now in today's hockey. And now the last question for you before we have to go to our break. You played hockey. Now we're going to transition from the Thunderbirds. Check out the Sioux Thunderbirds website and Facebook, and they play September 7th is puck drop there against the Sioux Eagles, the first game of the season. Can't believe it's already happening. But Johnny, to give a little bit of background where you played over in Italy. You played some professional hockey yourself. Just to give some new listeners of the show. I know you've been on the show many times. So if you want to give a little background about yourself.
Yeah, that's a tough question.
No,
I was lucky enough to play 19 years pro. I played in pretty much every league other than the NHL. So I was lucky enough to play in 10 World Championships and Olympics against most elite players in the world. So I find myself it was lucky. It was a lot of work. I paid my dues. I dedicated myself to the sport, and I worked hard at it. And I had some success.
Definitely a lot of success. And the Sioux Thunderbirds have had a lot of success, so they're looking for it this year again as well. This has been John Parko, head coach of the Sioux Thunderbirds. Thanks for coming by, Johnny, and we'll definitely see you on the show again sometime.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
Of course.
Yeah.
We'll be back after these messages. Myself and Scott will go into part 3 of today's show, the Twin Sault's only local regional national sports show, the Game Sports Show. Welcome back to the Game Sports Show. Dave McKay, Scott Nason, host of the Game Sports Show in the US of A, host of the Game Sports Show in Canada. Scotty, your first time on the show. It's your third part. John was a great guest. How are you liking being part of the show here on the television side? First time.
It's very different than the radio. Obviously, you're making visual eye contact, and you're under even more time constraints. But this is a lot of fun, Dave. Appreciate you having
Time
me on.
constraints. That's something that we don't follow much.
You certainly don't, but you are starting to. So
Yeah,
that's
we
awesome.
gotta
That's
learn,
awesome.
especially. And you can check out previous editions on the Game Sports Show on thegamesportshow.podbean.com, thegamesportshow.com, our social medias outlets, Instagram, Facebook, at the Game Sports Show. We upload all that on there frequently, and obviously ESPN 1400, Sovereign Communications, ESPN in general. So many platforms to listen to the game. So make sure that you do not miss out on any shows, especially yesterday's show. That launch show was terrific with
Great
myself,
show.
you, and Matt Pocket and EJ. So we're going to jump in, though, now into part 3. We have NHL updates. We got some local football, and then some thumbs up and thumbs down before we wrap up our show. Andrei Vasilevsky of the Tampa Bay Lightning signed a monstrous contract as a goalie. And his Instagram post with Ryan the Tractor was absolutely hilarious, just living the dream. He signed an 8-year, $76 million, which is nearly $45 million in bonuses. The third highest paid goalie in the NHL. So Andrei Vasilevsky, great year he had in Tampa. Brutal playoffs that they had, though. However,
That was my
Andrei,
Stanley Cup winner, by the way.
that
Dave.
was your Stanley Cup winner. They got swept by the Columbus Blue Jackets. Andrei Vasilevsky, though, re-signing. Great. He's young. It's a good fit in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I mean, it was a no-brainer as far as Tampa where they're at, and they have a lot to prove going into next season. Regular season, not so much. The playoffs, yes. Of course, they don't have Steve Yzerman as their general manager
Yeah, big
anymore.
change.
Thankfully, he's with the Detroit Red Wings now.
Detroit fan, you are?
Hopefully, he can turn them around in the next few years. But no-brainer for Tampa. They had to re-sign him, and he has the numbers to back up what he's getting.
Absolutely, and he was a Toronto killer. If people remember, averaging almost 50 saves a game against the Toronto Maple Leafs this year when he played. Now, sticking with Tampa too, Ryan Callahan was traded. Okay, there's a quick breaking news that happened today actually to the Ottawa Senators. Mike Condon in a 5th and 6th round pick going back opposite ways. Ryan Callahan, who was obviously a captain of the New York Rangers, is a big part of that team, and obviously in Tampa, he now might not play hockey again because of his back. There's obviously a salary cap dump to sign Vasilevsky or potentially sign Braden Point. And speaking of Braden Point, he's an RFA. And those RFAs, they're still available. Mitch Marner, Patrick Laine, you have Kachuk, you have Point. They had a post out. Okay, we've talked about Mitch Marner. This is the 7th straight show I've talked about Mitch Marner, okay, being an RFA, okay? And I am
Almost an
keeping
obsession.
Yeah, I'm keeping track here. But overall, the UFAs are still unsigned. If you made a team with the RFAs and UFAs left, you'd have a stacked team still, okay? So Mitch Marner and a lot of players who are still not signed. Toronto Maple Leafs are in a predicament right now where they're not budging. They're actually, the odds are favorite in Canada to win the Stanley Cup in terms of Canadian teams, even without Mitch Marner, which is absolutely surprising. But Scotty, RFAs and Toronto Toronto Stanley Cup odds? What do you think?
Well, with Marner, he holds all the cards. I said it a few weeks ago. I'm going to continue to say it now. He's in a good position. Toronto, I would think, would want to get him. Yeah. It's been a while since the Canadian teams won the Stanley Cup, going back to 1993, Dave.
Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah. And so the odds are that it will happen at some point. And, Toronto right now, hopefully they don't play Boston in the playoffs. They want to avoid that Boston-Toronto playoff
That's their
route.
killer. That is their killer. And the RFAs in general that are available, they're all waiting for Mitch Marner, as we talked about. The Leafs have that $10.5 million in space. They are going to wait. And if Mitch Marner wants to get an offer sheet, go ahead and give us 10.6. We'll take the 4 first-round picks, or we'll match your offer. Mitch Marner will remain, and all these other players, I believe, will remain as well. But I made the big assumption that maybe Colorado and Winnipeg can make a trade with Laine and Rantanen. I just kind of think that'd be a really good fit. The RFA is still unsigned, waiting for the dominoes to fall for sure in the NHL. Scotty, we're going to transition from the NHL now into football. And without further ado, we're going to jump into our famous, since 2015, In the Pocket segment. And with our In the Pocket segment today, we got local football. Obviously, the NFL had some big news with AJ Green going down with the Bengals. The season's just around the corner. We talked about that yesterday. You can check that out on the ESPN 1400 stream. But local football, the Stu Steelers, they lost their playoff game 61-0 to Steel City Patriots. And that's a tough loss, obviously, for any team to kind of endure. But road trips and then playing in that NFC, the playoff route in terms of Stu Steelers, a little bit different than playing the varsity or junior varsity SaberCats. Tough loss, 61-0.
Yeah, tough loss, but overall a 4-4 season, being back in the league for the second year. Overall a good season for the Steelers. You're competing against some tough teams down in that area that have a lot more resources than the Steelers do, but nothing to hang their heads about. It was a good season for the Steelers.
It sure was. Now, another program that had a good season, I like to say a great season, did the junior varsity SaberCats. We've talked about the SaberCats on our Sports Center edition all the time. We keep in track with our In the Pocket segment. Coach Jamie Antonello, Dustin Grondin, and Matt Primo being there, obviously, with the varsity SaberCats. Junior varsity SaberCats is Jim Monaco, who did a terrific job, especially Mike Nicoletta with 5 touchdowns leading into that game. They had an undefeated regular season. They had the one the cancellation in the games. It could have arguably finished the year fully perfect, but they didn't finish perfect in the semifinals, losing to Chatham. Okay, they lost to Chatham in the semifinals, did not move or advance to the finals. Nothing to hang your head about, though. The junior varsity program is looking very strong, and the future is looking strong with Sault Ste. Marie.
Yeah, it really is 7-1-1 overall. They easily could have been 8-1 overall during the season, and it's nice to see these teams getting some publicity with our show and getting some publicity on the U.S. side as well, because good football is played on both sides of the border, and obviously the SaberCats showed just that this season. I
would like to see, and I've said it'd be good to get, I know we've had some conflict in the hockey side in terms of CI Blue Devils and St. Mary's College back in the day.
We'll leave that one out.
But we'll leave that out. But at the end of the day, I think it'd be great to have each other play each other in exhibition games and tune up for seasons, because then play exhibition games against teams that you're going to play. I was never really a fan of that in the world of sports. I think it'd be great to go, and you guys obviously in America have very strong football talent, obviously with baseball. So I think it'd be very good for me, the SaberCats program, the Steelers program, to really look at to get in some exhibition games in the United States.
I'd just like to see more cross-border rivalries that are developed. We talked about the Thunderbirds and the Eagles with Coach Barco, and we more is better as far as I'm concerned.
Definitely, and just more radio content for us as well, exactly, and TV content.
That's right.
So that's going to do it for In the Pocket segment, Scotty. We're going to get to our thumbs up and thumbs down. It's a little bit different than we do for radio. It's just the one thumbs up that we have, and we keep it positive all the time. And for thumbs up, we have 2 thumbs up this week, and one goes to a friend of mine, Brandon Schmidt, who won the City Golf Championship in Sault Ste. Marie this past weekend. We will have Brandon on in the coming weeks on the ONN TV and radio portion of the show. So congratulations to Brandon for that. And of course to a friend of mine and a former semi-pro hockey player, John Glavoda. He donated $25,000 to the Sioux Area Hospital.
Wow.
Absolutely fantastic. So thumbs up to those guys. Scotty, this has been the first TV show that we've had. Thank you for coming on by, my friend, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks for having me. Great show.
Absolutely. It's been Dave McKay here for the Game Sports Show, the Twin Sault's only local regional and national sports show. And for Sioux Online, ONN TV, until next time, we're on the Game Sports Show. To everyone out there, have a good night. Booyah.